Hello art world, and welcome back to my channel. um, Working on a drawing here. This is the Batman drawing. I started a few days ago. It started out as a simple sketch, and I just kept building on it, and turned into something else, a little bit more uh, than I had expected it was going to be. I was going to stop here with this sketch and just leave it like that. And I just thought, oh, you know what? I'm gonna keep going. So I did my typical experiment. This is all experimental, but I've just been experimenting with basically every drawing I'm doing now. I'm developing a bit of my own style. I don't know if I guess I am deriving inspiration, possibly copying a little bit of the style of others and mixing them in a way. And but what I'm doing, my process is thin ink wash outline of the underdrawing, and then I erase whatever's left. I just basically use the ink wash to outline highlights, dark areas, that I'll come to later with Copics. And that's basically my technique: is the wash, outlines, and then I Copic everything, and then I come back in at the end with a sharp pencil and define the edges a little more, add some depth. And then at the very end, I always used to outline with a white gel pen, because I just like the contrast from the dark to the light. It made the drawings pop, especially on this tan tone paper. So this is, I believe, it's Strathmore tan tone paper. And yeah, I just always like the dark lines, comic book outlines, and then like a pop at the end with the white gel pen. It seems to really, you can do a lot of cool things with like guiding people's eye through the drawing with that gel pen at the end. So this is going to be a long video today. I think it's like 40 minutes. So I'm going to try my best to keep this interesting and talk about what I'm thinking about while I'm drawing, and what I'm going through during this drawing. So lots of stuff going on here. I'm using it's like a manga pen, I guess you would call it. It's a brush pen. I got it from Michael's. It was like it has Japanese writing on it, in silver on the cap, I believe, and it came in like it was like a manga a pack of two pens that you get. For some reason, there was like manga drawings all over the cardboard that it came in. It was Pentel, Pentel. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, Pentel, Pentel. It's Japanese company. Pretty good, pretty great pens. I really like them. So I used to use them. Well, I used the pen that you see that I'm drawing with there, until it ran out, and then I refilled it a couple times. But I didn't like. I felt like I didn't have that much control. I don't know. I have like a really fine point. I'm drawing with literally one hair at the end of this pencil, or I mean a pen. There's like one long hair that sticks out at the end, and I'm using that one hair to do my outlines. I just like really thin lines at first, because I've said this in other videos, it gives me the ability to later on, um, uh, as the drawing progresses, I can alter the lines and change them. Um, Pretty much, I can move fingers drastically. I can do lots of neat things. I don't typically do that anymore, but it is like a nice fail-safe just in case I don't like, at the end, oops, I messed up. Like, I'll think to myself, oh man, I messed up the angle of the tip of that finger right there. Um, because I actually did right here. I did mess up that finger. And you can see I pulled too much on the shadow underneath the tip of the index finger, and it makes it look like it's almost sideways, so the proportions aren't right. But you'll see I can come back in at the end and I can completely alter the shape of the finger because I went so thin with such um, um, a, a very uh, just basically a thin line, it's not uh, dark, it's basically transparent as well. So combining those two things, the fact that it's very thin and it's basically a transparent, it's almost see-through, very light washed ink. I can alter it later on. So this is like a really nice way to like lay out your sketch permanently, like the outline of it anyway. Whereas I've noticed when I used to just do the sketch with pencil, and then I would come back with um, I'd go over it with Copics right from the pencil sketch. What was happening was, number one, the pencil was becoming a mess. It was bleeding all over the place and it distorted the colors. And then there was too many variants of shades of the color. I couldn't control what was happening in the drawing as much as I can when I use this pen. I use Higgins black ink, and I take basically the dropper out and I touch my pen to the end of the dropper. I don't even squeeze out a drop. I just take that little bit and it sucks it up into this pen, the brush pen, and then I dab that into water very quickly. So I'm going to describe exactly what I do. I take a I forget what they're called. The little they basically just get a little cupped paint tray. I put 2 or 3 drops of water in that. In any cup, really, it'll work. Any sort of cup, just 2 or 3 drops of water, and then, like I said, you take Higgins ink or whatever ink, Speedball, whatever you prefer, and you. Now this Pentel pen has run out of ink. I said before. I never ended up putting a new cartridge back in because, like I said, I didn't like the way the ink was. It kind of flows out pretty quickly, and you kind of, and it's some artists like that. If you are that type of artist, then that's good. It could be a good thing that the ink is runny and comes out very quickly at the out of the tip of the pen. But I don't like it. I just like when I can control it a little bit better, and I notice I get a little more control when I just simply let the ink run out. I didn't put a new cartridge in it, so now it's simply just the brush at the end with no ink cartridge in the pen, and like I said, I take the 2 drops of water, put it in a little cup, and then I take my ink and I just get a little bit on the end of the pen, and then I swirl that around into the water, the 2 drops of water, and it makes a nice little gray mixture. It's not, the black as the ink would be, but it's just like a gray light wash, and that's what I'll use to do my outlines. because it is permanent, it doesn't bleed. I've noticed it doesn't run when the Copics run into it. If I go over it multiple times with the Copics, it doesn't. It stays. It's permanent. It's there, you know. And I noticed when I was using just pencil, it was making a mess, and it was running all over the place. It was the pencil was altering the color of the Copics. It was just I didn't like the effects I was getting. I didn't like the way it was working, and it also made that permanent. So if it smeared, if my Copic brush smeared the pencil, and then it was giving like, you know, softer but darker areas, and then if I didn't smear in another area where the pen kind of just bled into that the ink, it would stay like a solid line. So I mean, I guess there could be a way if I kept practicing. It just seemed too invariable to me. Like it wasn't consistent. So I just stopped doing it altogether. I might come back and try in the future if I have some spare time, which I never really have. I have a full-time job. I'm just doing this on the side to inspire people and maybe make some people better artists if I can. I like to teach people how to draw. It's like a really almost therapeutic sort of thing I've been doing here. So I like drawing, and it's helped me throughout my whole life, and I want it to be there for other people that maybe, you know, find stress in their life or go through a stressful time. It can really help. Drawing and being creative and keeping your mind active can be a really good thing. So I just want to spread that message and help people to find hope in art, because art it's been with us on this earth for a very long time, and it's going nowhere, and there will always be artists, there will always be art work being done. And I think it's just a really cool thing. I've always really loved comic books growing up, and the Mad magazines, how cool the illustrations were in those. Rest in peace to the artist of some of those Mad magazine covers. But yeah, so art's really been a great inspiration in my life and helpful to me throughout my life. So I want to pass that on to the next generation and help people find as much fun in it as I have. And yeah, so back to the techniques. Now I've come in with the Copics. I'm using N1 on the suit, or I mean N0 on the suit and N2 to start. I think in around the hips I put very small accents of N4. So that's the neutral gray. These are all neutral grays. My warm grays ran out, and I don't really have any extra money to buy more. When I did have some extra money, I did buy not extra money, but when I did have some motivation and money, I bought refills, because that's what's really cool about Copics is you can refill them, so you don't have to keep buying new pens. These are the same pens I've had. I'm running low on the inks that I did buy, but getting by for now. But yeah, I ran out of the warm color grays, so I use these neutrals, and I like them. They're more like a neutral gray. It's a really nice gray. There is a cool gray, a C, I believe. I think so. That would make sense that there's a warm neutral and a cool. Maybe the neutral is the cool though. I don't know. I don't know for sure. Haven't looked at getting new Copics in quite some time. Just been using the refills I bought because they last. They really do. The refill bottles. unless you're using them like every day, which lately I have been using them almost every day. But if you're not using them every day, like if you're just using them here and there, they last a really long time. I mean, you get a lot of refills out of one bottle, one of those refill bottles. So, yeah, I'll post this time in this video. I'll get a little bit more serious and post my a list of the products that I use. So I'll tell you what they are in during this video, but I'll also at the bottom in the description I'll make a list of what products I am using, and maybe some links to like their website or something. So yeah, N2 for the dark areas, and N0, which is the lightest neutral gray, for the lighter areas. This was simply an experiment, but I really ended up liking the way it turned out. The whole time as I was going through it, I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. Oh, they're not blending. The colors aren't working. Nothing. It didn't seem right. The whole drawing, I had doubts about this drawing. And then finally, when I got to the end, I was actually happy with the way it turned out. So if that's another piece of advice I could lend to someone, never give up on your drawings. You know, sometimes the drawings that I feel like are going the worst, I can step away. Sometimes you need to step back, take a look at it, take a breather, and start again. And when you do that, sometimes you see stuff you didn't see before, and you become more willing to try new things, to correct certain mistakes that you've made, and then it ends up being one of your favorite drawings. So never give up on a drawing. That's the worst thing you can do, is quit when you're working on a piece of artwork. Just don't quit, and you'll see it can yield some interesting things. And even if it does fail, I mean, at least you learn some stuff, right? There's always something to gain, so never quit. So on the face, his skin tones, I was using R11 and E00 to make the face. The tongue is R20, I believe, with neutral gray 0 washed over top of it. I've noticed that these Copics have such an amazing range. I mean, I can use a couple colors, a couple markers, and really make a lot of different things happen. Achieve a lot of different textures, a lot of different shades. So you really don't need like those big boxes of Copics that they sell. Like if you get one, cool, that'll last you. But if you're just interested in starting up and trying this for the first time, I would recommend just getting like a couple colors that are like, you know, I'll make a list in the description if you want to see what I did. I basically guessed, and I guessed right somehow. I'm very satisfied with the colors I've chosen, and there's only a couple of them. I really don't have that many, and you can go on my Instagram and check it out. Some of the stuff I can do with these. I mean, I've done a bunch of different drawings now, and there's a big range that I have achieved with these markers, and I'm only using a handful of markers. Now they are expensive. It's like, I think the last time I checked they're like $7 a piece, but that's not that bad really, if you're going to be using them a lot, and if it's something that you really like, if art's something you really want to pursue, it's worth it, because like I said, you can buy those refills, and then it doesn't turn out to be that expensive. So the initial investment is the most expensive part. Then it's like $9 to $12 for a refill bottle, and those refill bottles will refill your pen like it feels endless. Like I'm halfway through one of my most used colors, and I'm halfway through the bottle, and I mean, I've had it for 2 or 3 years now. Now, granted, there was a period of time where I stopped using them altogether, and I was just drawing and doing other stuff. I was painting, and but still, I've been using them every day, and I don't know. There's a lot of refills in those refill bottles, so it ends up being worth it. It ends up being that these markers are not that expensive in relation to like if you were to buy brand new markers every time, it would be a total wash in comparison. So I like them. I like buying the refills, like I said, and there's a lot of neat stuff you can do with them. So you can put down color and then like do a light wash of a neutral color on top of that to achieve like a third color, and then you can use other colors to mix on top of that to make other color like different versions of colors. And so you can achieve all these things if you have like the baseline of the color scheme that you want to go with. And you really don't, I mean, the funny thing about color is when you have a gray, you can make it look blue. You can make gray look blue. You can achieve the look of a color even though that color is not there. If you research and look into the old masters and the way they painted, I mean, I've put grays down that are just simply like a green gray, and then next to a different color they look blue, like bright blue. It's unbelievable the difference when you put one color next to the other in comparison to just looking at it alone. You can make it look like there's colors there that aren't actually there. So there's neat techniques to like fool the eye and stuff. I'll get into that later in other videos, and I'll premeditate that into my drawing before I start the process of drawing that. So I wanted to go over quickly though the process for the belt and the colors I used for the belt and the emblem on his chest. 1 second, I'm just gonna get a drink quickly. Okay, so I used Y21, Y23, and E00. On the belt, I used Y23 at the absolute bottom. In the middle, I used the Y21, and then I fade that up into the E00. Also, at the absolute top of that belt, I used a very thin line of Y21. Now, I didn't wash over the whole E00 line, but I just added at the absolute top because one thing I'm noticing with shadow and color, when it comes to shadow and highlights, I've noticed there's always a shadow in the highlight, and there's always a highlight in somewhere in the shadow at some point. Not always, but in a lot of appealing drawings and works I've seen, I notice that artists use that technique. They'll put like I think it's called, what is that called? It is the rim highlight, maybe, or something like that, where there'll be like a ball. If you think about a ball at the bottom, if there's a shadow at the bottom of the ball, the darkest part of the ball is the bottom, the light source is coming from the top, at the bottom of the ball there will be like a thin light area of a reflected light from the floor, or like from another object or something that is reflecting back onto that. So basically, if you think about it with Batman, as his belt arc, I wanted it to look like it was almost like bubbling, like the belt was bubbling out. So like almost like a half cylinder sort of idea for his belt. And so at the bottom, his legs would be reflecting light upward into the shadow at the bottom of the belt. Um, so that's something to think about. And also, I think shadow even is reflected into light areas in spots. So that's why I did the thing with it at the top of the belt. I'm gonna research light, like the way it falls, a little bit more. I've been studying this throughout my whole life, just like observing things. But I want to actually start getting into the scientific uh, end of how this works, how light falls, and things like that. It's very interesting anyway. It's cool to learn. So here I am. I'm starting to outline lightly and darken up the emblem, darken up and give some texture to uh, his mask. And I wanted to do like a different look for Batman in this. So he does look different. I thought it was a neat version of a suit. Maybe he has this suit from, I don't know, for some other reason, or like I was gonna say maybe this is like a callback to like his older suit, but like revamped, like because I wanted the cowl to be like on the outside. I don't know why I thought that seemed neat. Um, so I'll get into depth of how like what that stuff's gonna be made of, whether it's like rubber or like this or that. I like to expand on these ideas in my spare time, so I'll get into it. But basically, just wanted to do something a bit different. I was gonna do the gloves yellow, but then I was thinking like I don't think if I were Batman I would want my gloves to be yellow if I was trying to like be able to hide from people. If I needed to hide in shadows, I mean, like bright yellow gloves, probably not the best idea. Although he does wrap himself in his cape, so it might not matter until like the moment of. But I feel like your hands, like do a lot. And so like if he's throwing a punch at a bad guy or something, they might see his hands better if they're like yellow gloves. So they might like pop out more, whereas like darker gloves would probably be better for Batman for a character like him, because it would just, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I have a lot of fun thinking about this stuff, so it's worth it. Yeah, so I thought about doing the gloves yellow, decided against it. I like the more neutral colors for his outfit, not going like solid black. Although I wish I did do the cape black and the inside of the cape black, but you'll see at the end I make the cape. This is at the end I just kind of did like an abstract version of the inside of his cape. It's not really what it would look like. This is not actual concept. This is more of like a bit abstract too. I like to add these things, and that's why I like drawing and not profiting off of it, or doing. I don't want to say I do nothing with it, but I haven't really like profited off my art, and it's kind of like a really cool thing because it gives me a lot of freedom. I don't have any expectations to live up to. I can really be free with what I feel like a design that I like would be. You know, I'm able to communicate that idea and experiment and do like weird stuff. Whereas like, I don't know, maybe comic book artists are able to do that too, but I just feel like I have a lot of freedom, because I'm not making anything off of my art yet. So, uh, although one day I do hope to do that. I think it's a great thing that people are doing that. But it is something I noticed that I just have that a little bit of freedom where I'm not like stuck into like drawing certain things a certain way, like, oh man, you drew Batman like the wrong way, or I feel like there's no criticism because no one's really looking at what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of doing whatever I want, and it's kind of cool. I like the place I'm in right now because I'm not haven't always been motivated to use my art for anything, but lately I have, because I feel like there are ways to use art for good and like help people. So that's all I want to do really, is help people. If I profit from it, I think that's great too. So, but back to the drawing. So just working on the lines, adding some stylistic texture by using lines to circle around the highlights in areas. It makes the highlight pop a little bit, and it's just interesting. I find the way it looks. I like the way it looks, so that's why I do that. There's no real reason or rhyme for it. It's just I like the way it looks. Something I've experimented with a lot, and I've noticed it in other people's art and kind of use that. So yeah, just zooming out here a little bit, you can see a little bit better idea of what the final product is going to look like now. It doesn't look great, but I think it looks neat in person. But yeah, you can keep refining. That's the thing. I didn't need to stop and go into pencil. I've just been lately motivated to produce more work to educate people. Like, I want to get out more videos so that people can learn a little bit more about my techniques and my process. So I've just been kind of trying to go a little bit quicker than usual. Sometimes I really take my time with the drawing. Can take a few days at work to work on, whereas with this one I think I did this in like 2 hours, maybe a little less. So now here I'm coming in with some acrylic. Just let me see what this is. Liquitex Professional Heavy Body Acrylic Titanium White. I bought a big bottle because it was on sale. A big tube. It was on sale, and yeah. So I take this. I just squirted it a little bit onto a floor tile, and I have a little cup of water. A little shot glass of water that I am dipping into and mixing on the tile, the floor tile. You can see it there at the top of the screen. It's peeking in. So I basically am going for like a watery consistency. I want it to be a little bit more watery than how it comes out of the tube. It comes out of the tube fairly thick, this heavy body acrylic. So I like to water it up and loosen it up a lot. Now I also use the bristles of the brush to beat it into that's how I mix the water into the paint. And I notice, because sometimes if you just put water and swirl the brush onto the, you know, whatever, onto your floor tile or whatever you're using to mix your paint on. If you just swirl your brush bristles around on that, it'll leave chunks of like the acrylic paint that didn't fully become liquid, as like they didn't fully mix with the liquid. One good way is to use one of those little palette knives to mix the paint. So take like a couple drips of water, drip it onto, the process would be taking a couple drips of water somehow, dripping it onto the floor tile, and then using your palette knife to fully mix. So then it's actually, the liquid's actually fully mixed with the acrylic paint. But right here I'm in a bit of I'm trying to go like quick with this because I knew I was filming. I'd run out of, you know, battery, or my camera kept shutting down, and so it like does that. I think there's a setting on the camera I'm gonna have to go back in and alter, because it just shuts down if it just like is recording too long. So I was going quick here, but what I was doing to mix, rather than using a palette knife, which probably at this point, thinking back, might have been faster, what I did was I take my brush, and this is a technique I've learned. I take the brush, I dip it in the water, I dip that onto the whatever I'm going to be mixing on, and then I pull the acrylic into the water, like a dollop of acrylic onto the water, and then I beat it sort of with the bristles facing down. I smash the bristles into the acrylic water mixture, and that mixes it pretty well, and it mixes it fast too, from what I've seen. So maybe it's faster to just use a palette knife, but when I'm in a hurry, I've always done this. I've just like grabbed I never thought of like getting, you know, another tool and then going back, and it just seemed faster to grab the acrylic with the brush. But like I said, you have to kind of beat the brush because it'll get clogged in the bristles, the unmixed acrylic. So you have to, if you want it fully mixed and you want it to lay the same way every stroke, then you have to do that. You have to do it that way. You have to beat it basically by tipping the brush straight up and down and kind of smushing the bristles in a way that the bristles are fanning out and contracting as you pull it up. So you want to smush it so that it fans out and smushes the acrylic. It's kind of mixing the acrylic with the bristles, essentially, is what you're doing, with the retraction of the bristles. So there's always a spring to a paintbrush. Paintbrushes have a certain resistance or spring to them. When you press on something, they spring back to their original shape. Obviously, that's how they maintain their shape. But I use that friction to mix my paint if I'm in a hurry. Probably not the best thing to do because it might wear out your brushes, but I use really cheap brushes, as you can see. The one is kind of expensive, but I've been using it forever. It's a very small, I forget what size that is. It'll be in the description. I'll look it up and I'll post it in the description. But yeah, that brush is worn. It's worn out bad. The bristles are going every direction because I have always mixed by like smashing the bristles into the thing. But it's lasted forever. It's a really great brush. I think it's Windsor & Newton. It was like $10 for that brush, I believe. but it is a wonderful brush, and I probably would buy it again, but probably not anytime soon. I bought this years and years back. I've just been I haven't ever destroyed it yet. I don't know how. I don't really use it all that often. It's a very thin brush, and I was doing larger paintings in the past, so I never really did use it. But when I did, it seemed to hold up well. So going in between the legs here, I'm using I use the bigger brush at first, and then I come back in with the thinner one to really strike the barrier between the dark and the light of this abstract version of the inside of his cape. Because I just like the way it looks. It makes the drawing pop. Now, I was going to go in with a white gel pen at the end and try to go around the head and everything, but I chose not to. It looks like we're actually at the end of the video. Wow, that went by a lot faster than I had thought. So yeah, if you can, please check out my Instagram, smartful_creations. Also, I'm going to be posting these YouTube tutorial videos of my drawing process. You can see the finalized version of this Batman on my Instagram, and yeah, check back in. I'll be producing a lot more work. I'm actually working on a Court of Owls Batman right now, so yeah, stay tuned. Thanks again for tuning in, and stay well during this coronavirus outbreak. See ya.